The 4 keys to say something in Welsh. When you're just starting with Say Something in Welsh, it can be easy to get confused about how exactly you should use the course materials. That's a large part of why we developed the 6-month Welsh Speaker course. You can find out more about that at www.saysomethingin.com/6MWS. But for people who can't afford either the time or the money for our 6-month course, we've put together this video. It's designed to make sure you can see exactly how to get the best possible results from the SSIW lessons and how to achieve the confidence you want in speaking Welsh. The first of the 4 keys is the pause button. Most people can adapt to not using the pause button, so it is very much worth trying to get through the first 5 lessons without the pause button. If you adapt and can say most of the phrase before you hear the model answer about 95% of the time, whether you're getting it wrong or right doesn't matter at this point as long as you're saying something, then you're ready for life without the pause button, and you'll be able to go a fair bit faster as a result. If, however, you're not getting most of the phrase out almost all of the time by lesson 5, again without worrying about whether it's right or not, if you're just not saying anything at all more than about 5% of the time, then you need to be using the pause button. But here's the thing, you should always try to pause for the shortest amount of time possible, ideally just a second or 2. The pause button, if you're using it, should give you just enough time to say the phrase, wrong or right. It should not give you time to sit and think it through, because you want to train yourself for the speed of response that you will need in live conversations. Now there's one last important point about the pause button. If you're okay without it most of the time, but you can't get the longer sentences out, then don't worry. The longer sentences are just there to improve your brain's ability to chunk, to process several words as if they were just one item of language, which is what will eventually make you start to sound more fluent. When a sentence is too long, all you have to do is say whatever bits of it you can and then listen closely to the model answers. Gradually, over time, you'll find that some of the impossibly long sentences start to become less terrifying, and eventually you'll be able to get some of them out in time. But don't worry. You're not meant to be able to get the long sentences, and it's normal to find them too hard. Everyone else does too. The second of the 4 keys is repetition, how often you repeat each lesson. Most people make an understandable mistake here. They presume that they're meant to get most of a lesson correct before they carry on to the next lesson. It probably doesn't help that some of our earlier audio intros suggest aiming for 80% correct answers before moving on. It turns out that's not appropriate for everyone. Most people do not need extra repetition because we revisit every single word and structure on a deliberate pattern of spaced repetition. Something you couldn't get right at all in lesson 1 will at some point, as if by magic, start to seem easy. However, just as there are people who need to use the pause button, so there are people who need extra repetitions. But you have to be careful about how you measure this. Don't presume that because you can't remember everything at the end of lesson 1, you need extra repetitions. Almost no one can remember everything by the end of lesson 1. A much better way to figure this out is to work through the first 5 lessons and then see if lesson 1 feels any easier than it did the first time. If it does, you can go the whole way through the course without repeating lessons, settling instead for just repeating the last lesson of each course once every few weeks, and you'll save a huge amount of time. If lesson 1 doesn't feel easier when you return to it after doing the first 5 lessons, then keep cycling through the first 5 lessons until Lesson 1 does start to feel easier. That will show you how many times you need to repeat each lesson. Once you know how many times you need to repeat each lesson, do them in batches of 5 with a maximum of 3 repetitions per batch. So, for example, if you've discovered that you need to repeat each lesson 4 times, you would do Lesson 1 3 times, Lesson 2 3 times, Lessons 3, 4 and 5 3 times each, and then return to Lesson 1 for the last repetition. Or maybe you need 5 repetitions, so you do the same thing, Lessons 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 3 times each, and then return to Lesson 1 for another 2. This keeps you moving and stops you getting stuck on one lesson. Getting stuck is very high risk because it can make you feel like giving in, and stopping is the one way to guarantee failure. The third of the 4 keys is listening. After every 5 lessons, there's a 5-minute listening exercise. You can find them on the download page for the 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th and 25th lessons of each level. In general with SSIW, it doesn't matter when you do your lessons, and it doesn't matter how long a gap you leave between lessons. With the listening exercises though, it's very valuable if you can build them into your daily life. Just 5 minutes a day, ideally while you're doing something else, so that it becomes entirely automatic for you. It never needs to be more than 5 minutes, unless you want it to. An hour a day for 5 days will give you a heck of a kickstart with this. When you reach the second listening exercise, you can stop using the first one, because each listening exercise includes everything you've covered up to that point. Oh, and when you get to the second listening exercise, don't be surprised, it's not a glitch. It's meant to be at double speed. In about a fortnight, or less if you're doing more than 5 minutes a day, you'll notice real neurological change as a result of listening to these accelerated exercises, and you'll be developing a startling advantage over traditional learners when it comes to understanding ordinary Welsh speakers. The fourth and final key is all about mistakes. You have to make mistakes with SSIW. It's just too fast and too deliberately complex for you to try and be perfect. And we know that mistakes actually help form memories when you're immediately shown what the model answer was. In fact, any time you notice that you've made a mistake, that moment of noticing is when your brain recognises the difference and encodes a bit more information about it. So the more mistakes you make, the faster you learn and the sooner you'll be having real conversations. And the more you learn to laugh at your mistakes, the easier it will be for you to make mistakes in conversations without getting upset. And the easier it will feel to get into conversations, and therefore the more conversations you'll get into, and the sooner you'll be conversationally fluent. With this information under your belt, you're ready to become a Welsh speaker. And if you have any questions at any stage, come along to our enormously friendly forum at forum.saysomethingin.com and we'll be happy to lend a hand.